Hi, folks. Hope everyone is good, and I hope everyone had a good bank holiday weekend as well. I think this is quite a fitting topic that I'm going to speak about, especially after the weekend, the bank holiday weekend, that is. I kind of wanted to come on and do a video about why do you fall off track every weekend, and I have a couple of tips on how to maybe combat this as well. I suppose this time of year, especially, can be a tricky one for people trying to stay on track. Kids are off from school. I'm working with a lot of, I suppose, busy parents at the minute, busy mothers and fathers who, I suppose, might find it difficult to stay in a routine at this time of the year, which is completely normal, can I just say as well. It is a very difficult time to have I suppose a regular routine that you might have during the year when kids are in school, with your nutrition, with your exercise. You're a bit more I suppose strategic with your timings and stuff like that for getting things done and for planning and preparing. But I suppose this time of year, like, there's going to be a lot of weekends away, trips away, days out, holidays, maybe family occasions, family events as well. A lot of that does be held during the summer, and sometimes it can be a difficult time to make progress. But when you have a couple of tips and tricks in your back pocket, it is possible to maintain your progress. And I think, that's a mindset shift that people need as well, especially this time of year. And there's going to be certain stages of a year where things will get busier than normal, and that's the same for myself as well. And I have to realize that in that time, it's probably not a good, the best idea for me to be pushing myself to keep progressing more. But maintenance is also progress, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize, is your ability to maintain the progress you've I suppose achieved so far is progress in itself, because you've developed sustainable habits for yourself that you're able to kind of maintain over a period of time, until you feel ready to start pushing maybe a little bit more, until you feel you have more time availability, and until you feel you have a bit more of a flexible routine back in the mix as well. Okay, so I just want to run through a couple of things based on this first and foremost. Okay, so sustainability is my motto in basically everything I do. And I try and relay that a lot, because for myself, I have a very busy lifestyle as well. I definitely don't have a perfect lifestyle, and I don't think anyone does, even though, you probably do see a lot of perfect visualizations of lifestyles on social media. And like, a lot of that is just a highlight reel. It is very hard to try and live up to that, and if you're kind of giving yourself the expectation of to live up to that, it can be quite difficult. Everyone has different circumstances, and especially for myself, I'm all about sustainability, not about perfection at all. It's all about finding what works for yourself, and finding what fits into your routine and your lifestyle then as well. Okay, so just moving down along here, I want just to point out a couple of points here that I have down. So why weekends become chaos. Why weekends become food chaos. Most approaches fail because they're built on restriction, not balance. When you're perfect Monday through to Friday, you're actually creating artificial scarcity around foods that you enjoy. You're building up psychological pressure that explodes on the weekends, and you're teaching your brain that weekends is equal to rebellion time. You're setting up an unsustainable all or nothing dynamic. And I think, that's the framework that a lot of people put themselves in, is that all or nothing dynamic. And it can be very hard to switch out of that. So basically that means where, I suppose, you're maybe jumping on a program and you're trying to be absolutely perfect Monday to Friday, and then the weekend comes and you don't know how to control yourself, around maybe meals out, lunches out, meeting up with friends for coffee dates or whatever it might be. You don't seem to have that control. And the reason being is because you've restricted yourself so much during the week from foods you enjoy, and you're kind of feeling as though it's almost a treat at the weekend, but you're not able to control it, and it ends up being a binge out. Okay, so just moving down along then, to introducing the solution. Okay, so I have 5 kind of, I suppose, simple principles or steps or strategies that I like to use with my clients. Okay, so the first one is the permission principle. I'll break these down now, individually as well. The Friday bridge strategy, the 80-20 weekend rule, the social eating protocol, and the Monday momentum shift. Okay, so each of these strategies address a different aspect of the weekend struggles and work together to create lasting change. All right, so the first one, if we break it down, the permission principle. Okay, so I suppose the whole I suppose, aspect of this one is to stop creating forbidden foods and start creating conscious choices. So what to do with this first point is to choose one food you typically save for the weekends. Have a small portion of it on Tuesday or Wednesday or any day during the week. Rate your satisfaction level out of 1 to 10. Notice how it feels to have it without guilt. And that's the important thing there. Notice how it feels to have it without guilt, because, more often than not, the things that you're saving for the weekends is something you feel guilty about eating during the week. And, it's important to kind of, that's a whole mindset shift then as well. It's important to kind of notice how it feels to have it without that guilt. Okay. So, AKA having it during the week that you would normally save for the weekend. So, why this works: when you remove the forbidden fruit effect, weekend binges lose their psychological power. Okay. And I think that's really important, because a lot of it is in the head, and when it comes to binging out on foods, and a lot of it can be down to not enough control in terms of the balance of food that you're eating throughout the day. I would have spoke about before how people will go all day, or they'll go to like the middle of the day without having eaten anything at all, and they're gone so hungry that they are just kind of grabbing bits and pieces, whatever they can find, and it ends up into a binge for the rest of the evening. And that's kind of the I suppose aspect of it being a psychological power as well. Okay. Just going to break up then the second point, so the Friday bridge strategy. Okay. So creating continuity between weekends and weekdays. So what to do: plan one weekend meal that follows your weekday structure. So protein, carbs, fats, vegetables. Okay. Schedule it in for Saturday lunch or Sunday breakfast. Treat it as a non-negotiable anchor meal. And this is something I suppose say to people a lot as well when it comes to the weekends. So say for example, you have a meal out on a Saturday or a Sunday. What a lot of people tend to do is that they'll skip a lot of meals before heading out for that meal out. But what you run the risk of there is becoming over hungry before that meal out. And then when it comes to meal time, you're absolutely starving, and it's harder to have control on the overall amount of food that you eat at that meal out. Whereas if you were to have your breakfast as normal in the morning time, have a lighter lunch, then you're going to have some food in you from early in the day. You're not going to be absolutely ravenous with the hunger come mealtime when you're out, and you'll have a lot more control over what you choose at that meal out as well. Um, you know, Cravings, hunger, they all have a massive effect on your decision choices when it comes to food. And it's really important to try and, I suppose, create a better relationship with food by trying to control things a little bit better. So, and one thing that I always stand by at the weekends is to try and start your Saturday and Sunday off with your breakfast as normal. Before you go doing anything at the weekend, try and get your breakfast into you, because this is going to reduce your risk of snacking from an early stage of the day. I find, even for myself, if I was to skip breakfast, say on a Saturday or Sunday, I will just be starving for the day. And I'll be snacking at bits and pieces, and I won't have had anything substantial for the whole day. And sometimes that ends up in me overeating on my calories, even though I don't know it, because I'm picking at little bits here and there, and I'm kind of rubbing them off as like small bits and pieces that don't really matter. But those small bits and pieces are the most important things that you need to be tracking, because they are probably the things that are stopping you from making progress, and that are stopping you from dropping a few pounds off. Okay, so I suppose why this works: having one structured meal prevents the weekend free-for-all mentality and maintains your routine. Okay, so I think that's actually a really important point there, to kind of bridge the gap between the week and the weekend. So to have some continuity there is really, really important. Okay. Just moving on to the third point then, the 80-20 weekend rule. So aim for 80% of your weekday choices, not 100% perfection. So coming back to that point again that I made, that I'm 100% more for sustainability compared to perfection, because it's very hard to get things perfect. And if you give yourself the outlook of trying to be perfect, you will very quickly be disheartened, because you're going to find out that, when you don't hit these targets that you've given for yourself, it's going to dishearten you, and that's going to probably derail you and shove you off the bandwagon as well. Okay, so what to do for this point: so list your 3 main weekday habits. Example: protein at every meal, drinking water, eating regular meals. Okay, And one thing I want to add into this as well is to have a little bit more control over your meal timings as well throughout each day. Now, again, this can be more difficult at the weekend, but if you're able to establish your meal timings a little bit better during the week, so try and have, similar timings every day for each meal that you have, because your body is going to get used to this, and your body is going to be more used to getting hungry at a certain time, and it won't be, I suppose, more vulnerable to be getting hungry outside of this time. And that's something that I've really worked on over the past couple of years. When it comes to say 1-2 o'clock, I know it's time for my lunch, and I make sure that it's time for my lunch. And breakfast time, then I kind of have guidelines for myself that I stick to. But once you have kind of similar meal timings every day, it really sets your body in tune, especially with the craving hormones then as well, and the hunger hormones. It's a very good way to kind of stay in tune with your body and to have a little bit of structure there too. Okay, so list your 3 main weekday habits, as I was saying: protein at each meal, drinking water, eating regular meals. Commit to maintaining 2 out of 3 each weekend day. Okay, so commit to maintaining 2 out of 3 over protein at every meal, drinking water, and eating regular meals at each weekend day. And let the third one be flexible. Okay, so why this one works: you maintain momentum without the pressure that leads to complete abandonment. Okay, so again, another important point there, just kind of highlighting that it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're staying consciously in tune with certain things, that you can maintain your progress over the weekend, and it's not going to derail you too much. Okay, moving on to point four here: the social eating protocol. So navigate social situations without derailing progress. So the prep method: plan, eat something with protein before you go, review, check the menu options ahead of time, enjoy, choose one thing you're genuinely excited about, portion, have a satisfying amount, not a guilty amount. Okay, so that's the prep method for social situations, having a meal out, having a lunch out at the weekend, whatever it may be. So plan, review, enjoy, and portion control. Okay, why this works: you arrive at a social event as a human being. You're not a hungry, restricted person ready to rebel. So that's kind of alluding back to the point I made earlier, where you should try and have control over what you have before going for the meal out, not to try and skip meals, not to try and deprive yourself of food before that meal out, because I guarantee you will eat at least 3 times more at that meal out compared to if you had some food in you from earlier on in the day. You're not going to notice when you get full, if you're so hungry going into a meal out like that. Okay. Point number 5 then is the Monday momentum shift. So replace the restart cycle with the continuation mindset. Instead of Monday restart, do Monday review. So your old approach is: I was bad this weekend, starting fresh today, this time will be different. That's going to your new approach should be: what worked well this weekend? What would I adjust next time? How can I build on what's already working? Okay. And I think that's so, so important, because, again, as I alluded to before, like, we all have weekends that are off track from time to time. Like, that's life. We have to have meals out, we have to have family occasions, we meet up with our friends, there's events on, whatever it might be. Of course, we're going to have maybe a couple of drinks, we're going to have some food off track, there's going to be desserts, there's going to be buffets of food and stuff like that. But instead of looking at it in a negative outlook, we need to just look forward instead of what should I have done or what could I have done. Look to your new approach: what can I do and what will I do moving forward? And like, the whole thing is that we need to enjoy the process as well. Like, if you're going through a fitness journey and you're constantly feeling restricted, you're constantly, I suppose, feeling as though it's a chore to try and get into a fitness journey, or it's a chore to carry through with a fitness journey and exercise and nutrition, like, your approach is totally twisted. You need to focus on the positive outlooks of it and realize that life is life will happen, and to just move forward from times where you go off track rather than dwelling on them, and letting that guilt set in. So I'm going to say these again: everyone's new approach when it comes to weekends into your Monday momentum shift should be: what worked well this weekend? And that's something I want to allude to as well on your weekly check-in forms, guys. Like when I ask you, the top question is, what wins did you have this week? I want you to think of at least 1 to 2 things each week. And it does not have to be a big progress metric in terms of, you've dropped weight off the scales. Um, you got loads of workouts done. It can be a mindset thing. I want you to think really deeply here, because you need to start realizing things that are going well for you and things that are positive for you on this journey, because if you don't, it's going to be a very long process, and that's where a lot of people tend to drop off on it. Okay, so I want people to, I suppose, jot down things that went well for them. It could be, I did 2 extra reps in this exercise this week. I went up 1 kg or 2 kgs in this exercise this week. I tried out a new recipe. I prepped some food. I got a compliment on how I look. Whatever it was, went out for a coffee, and I got a plain coffee rather than my usual, flavored coffee or whatever it was. Things like that. Things that, because the more positive things that you can pull out of this, the more in control and the more confidence you're going to have from it then as well. Okay. What would you adjust next time? How can I build on what's already working? Okay, so that is point number 5. All right. So those are kind of the main things I wanted to point out to you there, guys. So just going back through these here again. So the permission principle, the Friday bridge strategy, the 80-20 weekend rule, the social eating protocol, and the Monday momentum shift. So I'm gonna pop this folder or this document into you guys in the WhatsApp group, and I'll pop it across on your messages on the coaching app as well. But I want you to really focus on it and be able to take the positives out of the weekend then as well, because I think the weekend is really a time where people will struggle, and especially around this time of the year, it's nice to have a couple of pointers in your back pocket to kind of fall back on and to kind of understand, I suppose, what you need to be working on. And just, I suppose, wanted to touch a little bit up on maybe meals out in particular, more specifically, and how to approach them. So the main thing I said earlier was, to try and focus on breakfast time at the weekend. Try and have that as normal with a high protein source in it. Maybe have a lighter lunch, because you're having a meal out in the evening time. And then when it comes to the evening time, try and focus on, choosing a dish that has a decent protein source. Try and maybe reduce choosing a dish that is very, I suppose, sauce loaded or is very calorie dense in that sense. Like for me, I try and avoid the pasta dishes because they're very carbohydrate dense, they're very sauce dense, and not because I'm not allowed them, but because I don't enjoy the feeling after having that type of dish. It makes me feel very sluggish instantly. It takes me a long time to digest pasta. I'm not a massive fan of it. And sometimes it can be very calorie dense. The sauce is very thick on them. So, choosing things that are maybe a small bit less calorie dense when you're out, but still have enjoyment from it as well. Eat slowly. Make sure to chew your food and concentrate on chewing your food. And that might sound very, very silly, but it's so true. And that's something I need to focus on as well, because sometimes I can be rushing when I'm eating, but I need to remember to slow down and take small bites and chew it. And because that's where digestion starts, is in your mouth. It doesn't start when, you get it down. It starts in your mouth. So chewing the food, making it easier to get down, and then it's more efficient digestion when it does go down. Okay. So, and then like things like dessert, like, see, like if you want dessert, you're on a meal out. If it's a case that maybe you've had a couple of meals out in a row, maybe try to avoid the dessert. Do you really need it? Ask yourself that. But absolutely, it's okay to have it from time to time. The main thing is that we don't want to feel restricted throughout this journey, guys. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much today's video. I hope that it was helpful. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on the guide as well. I'd love to know if you found it helpful, guys. I'd love some feedback on it. Okay. But yeah, hopefully you found that helpful, and I'll shoot it into the group. Thanks a million.